try to blow my mind. I don't care.
Peace, peace, black family. So recently I made a trip to Edenville, which is one of the first African-American self-sufficient independent communities in Central Florida. And I went there to pay respects to Zora Neale Hurston. But unfortunately, I kept mispronouncing her name throughout the video. So forgive me in advance for any mispronunciations I made throughout the video. With that being said, enjoy the video, family. All right, peace, peace, black family. So thank you for joining me again on another episode of After the Revolution. So today I stand in the historical town of Edenville, which is located in Central Florida. Now, some people might say, Brother Hassan, what are you doing in Edenville? And what does that have to do with Haitian history? Don't worry, we're going to get to that. But Edenville was a town that was founded in 1880 by former slaves. And they wanted to be self-sufficient. They wanted to be community-driven people. And so during the height of segregation, they created their own town. And they named it Edenville in 1880. Now, this was a self-sustaining, thriving black community in America. This is also the home of Zora Neale, who was an anthropologist and an author and one of the co-founders of what we call the Harlem Renaissance. This is also the city where Robert H. Hungerford created his first institution, where the people gathered their resources as a community and donated up to 100 acres. This was such a big deal because it was modeled after Booker T. Washington, after his institution, Tuskegee. And so the people of Edenville gathered their resources and donated over 100 acres to the Robert H. Hartford Institution. People from South Carolina, people from North Carolina, people from Georgia, Alabama, all came to Edenville to study at this institution. This was a big deal. And this shows what we can do when we gather our resources as a people. Again, this is the hometown of Zora Neale. Now, how does this connect to Haitian history? How does this connect to Haitian history? Zora Neale studied Haitian voodoo, and she wrote a book called Tell It to My Horse. But some might ask, what sparked her interest in Haitian voodoo? Here in Edenville, they had a store called Joe Clark's Store, where they would sit around and tell folklores, and they would talk about the old homeland, which was Africa, because the people of Edenville never forgot their history. They never forgot when they were self-sufficient. They never forgot what their ancestors taught them, that they are a people of the land. And that's why agriculture was so big here in Edenville, because we are a people of land. But Zora Neale was very fond of Haitian culture and Haitian history, and her people would talk about Haiti a lot, about the revolution. Because I said on a previous episode, George Biasu, who was the second in command in the Spanish crown, he had all of Florida on lock. And so they would hear stories about Haitians coming to Florida. And they gathered themselves and they gathered their resources. And Zora Neale would actually go to Haiti to write her most famous book, which is Their Eyes Were Watching God. That is her most famous book. She wrote that in Haiti. Haiti became her second home. She actually became a mumble in the Haitian culture. She was indoctrinated or brought into Haitian voodoo. And she's also one of the co-founders, female co-founders, next to Langston Hughes, because Langston Hughes and her used to go to Haiti a lot and travel. She was actually a co-founder of the Harlem Renaissance. That is very important to understand. Very important to understand, because when you look at the history of the Harlem Renaissance, you see culture. You see voodoo paintings. You see a connection to African spirituality. You see self-sufficientness in the Harlem Renaissance. And where did that come from? Where did that idea of being independent come from? Where did that idea of self-governing yourself come from? It came from the inspiration of the Haitian Revolution. Zora Neale was this is a very powerful book, Tell It to My Horse. This is why they never let her forget her culture. This is why in front of Joe Clark's store, they would tell stories about the old country, which the old country is a representation of Africa. This is very important to understand. Very, very important. And so I'm proud to stand here in the hometown of Zora Hurst Nielsen and to celebrate her legacy, and not only the legacy of her town and its connection to Haitian history. We must always remember that, man. We are one people, man, one African race with different ethnicities, but we are one African people. And so I'm honored to stand here as a descendant of Haitian culture, of the Haitian ethnicity, and pay homage to this African woman. Until next time, family, think black, stay black, love black, support black, and that's real black power, man.